So I just got done watching 2 episodes of The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic, episodes 5 and 6. I missed it last week, so I caught up today with the newest episode, and I think it's time I was honest about this anime, because I've been humming and hawing about how highly to praise a show like this, because there's a lot of good isekai that come out in a season. But what separates a good to a great to an amazing to even a masterpiece, right? And I'm not going to call it a masterpiece just yet. But I think it was time that not only myself, but many of us watching really took this from the pile of, here's a good show you're going to forget about in a season's time, to actually, this is an isekai gem. Because if I'm being honest, The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic, one of the shows I had the least amount of confidence in walking into this anime season, thinking it was going to be the most generic run-of-the-mill healing fantasy bullshit ever, has not only deviated, separated from the path that I thought I knew where it was going, but has, I feel like, parodied Pokemon with episode 5 to having legit characterization with this Demon Lord army approaching. And I have to be honest, man, with how episode 6 leaves off, if the next 7 episodes, because this is a 13 episode season, right? If the next 7 episodes go as hard, funny, development wise, and progression wise as I expect, maybe I will call this a masterpiece, but for right now, I'm not just saying this is a good or great isekai of the season, I'm saying this is an isekai gem of the season, and I'm gonna die on that hill already. I have full live reactions to all of these episodes over on my Patreon, so if you want to see me get all caught up with episodes 5 and 6, we just did that today, so full thoughts over there if you're interested. There's a lot to talk about. I was actually a little salty I couldn't talk about this last week. I didn't have internet for most of the day on Friday. The only reason you got free rent was because I hotspotted my phone, and that's how we did that. But I've been eager to watch these. It just eventually got to the point where it just made more sense to watch it, the 2 new episodes together. And honestly, it was really good because of that. Episode 5, I really feel like was a Pokemon parody in a way. Not in the way that they were necessarily trying to be Pokemon, but it's hard not to get the impression that Usato kind of used Susan as Pikachu. At first, when the bandits jump him, it felt like he was using his bear, saying like, hey, Blue Rin, I choose you. Go use Rollout, go use Bite. And then he starts using her as this like electric rod, and the fact that in the cave he's basically saying use Thunderbolt on the fire. Good job. It felt like Pokemon, and I really hope I'm not the only one who felt that. I didn't take a look at what people thought of last week's episode, so I have no idea if I'm just crazy with the way I looked at episode 5. But it felt very Pokemon inspired. Hell, at one point when they get blasted into the forest, you can't look me in the eye and say that doesn't feel like Team Rocket blasting off again. Whether it was intentional or not, doesn't matter. That felt like Pokemon and I absolutely loved it. But the great part about episode 5 is despite them, separating the cast, this was supposed to be like, hey, we go on this mission, we help them out. And they pretty much immediately get thrown into the deep end, and we actually retrace our steps with the forest. We see the cub cave where basically the parents were dead. We see the cave that, we ultimately were going to jump them in and everything. And the fact that we get this really nice bonding time between these two is nice, because when you take 2 dudes and a girl who all get isekai'd at the same time, I'm expecting that there's a love triangle there. Even if Usato had no interest and romantic interest in Susan as a character, I felt like, well, naturally that's what you would do because that's what most of these fantasy shows do. And instead, they did something much more interesting, which is they kind of separated the romance pairing. Between Usato and her, there's something brewing there. He even gets a little flustered in that cave, so it's not one-sided seemingly. But then when it comes to our boy and the princess dynamic, that's where that potentially is going to develop. And they have some fun with it in episode 6 because, you gotta get yourself a man who looks at his bro the way he looks at you, because basically he looks and is more infatuated towards Usato than anything, but it's more of like he respects him. But it's very funny that the princess is jelly and basically is like, is there any way I can get you to look at me the same way you look at Usato? Pretty hilarious. But I appreciate that there doesn't feel like there's going to be drama between the 3 of them that when they got transported. They just kind of avoided that. And the idea of using episode 5 as this kind of like really showing how far we've come, because he's already been in that forest before, and luckily for us, the snake's been defeated. There's no bears that are trying to attack us. There might be adorable critters that will poison us because this girl has no self-control around adorable things, but at the end of the day, it was a very safe predicament because he's literally fallen to his death in this forest before. He knows how to brace that fall, and he knows how to basically get the job done. If anything, it was actually a lot easier because he had Pikachu by his side and could light a campfire without much struggle. But the idea of that conversation and seeing them open up together, as much as they could have made her into this character who's just all about the abs and wanting to probably lick him head to toe. While that definitely is a characteristic and she thirsty for our boy, I like the fact that we got this kind of like the chains being broken character development about how much she doesn't want to go back to her original world. The fact that it's very subtle, but the fact that she never climbed a tree in her original life, just the control that her parents must have had on her, and the fact that she has no interest to ever go back. The fact that she finally found her freedom in this isekai environment. The thing about isekai, which there's a reason the genre is so popular, it's basically the idea of anybody, a nobody, going into a world and becoming something extraordinary, breaking free of whether you had a shit life, controlling life, whatever it is, and a girl who is the embodiment of that, getting to live that weeb dream because she's always clearly read and consumed isekai media because she wished that would happen to her, and now that it has. That's actually really great writing, and it was honestly a surprise about episode 5. And then when it came to episode 6, we're starting to get the ball moving with the war approaching. And honestly, I have to give Rose some major props. Had she just ran away from that and tried to send a message, they would have got there before the message did. And instead, she tossed a giant tree to destroy whatever the hell they were building to buy them a few more days as she got the hell out of Dodge. Respect to her. And the fact that we get to learn even more about her as a person, why she's such a hard ass, it's not just about keeping people alive. She feels guilty. She feels like she's not a good person because clearly, not only the person who reminds her of Usato, but Usato going to surpass, the fact that she couldn't keep people alive and she feels like she doesn't belong on the front lines, probably similar to the way someone like Usato will, because he has everything that she's looking for. No matter how hard she pushes him, he always has spice and the will to push back against her. He has that fighter's determination, and I love seeing that type of moment, and especially because he doesn't have real world experience, especially battle experience, with healing on the fly. So a simple moment where 3 people are just in the middle of the road, they're injured. Yeah, it's a pretty nasty leg wound, but you know, he's gonna have to heal people who probably had their legs cut off or their hands cut off. Like, there's going to be really brutal things. And the difference in the way they do healing magic with this man who can't even run a foot away before huffing and puffing, has this calm aura, this rippling effect with his healing magic. Very peaceful, very tranquil. And then Usato's basically a LED flashing light just going crazy. And I'm like, you can just tell the panic despite knowing how built different he is until he calms down and everyone's healed. War is approaching, war is coming, and that prediction, I don't think that was bullshit. The fact that this girl runs up and says, hey, you have the power to change this. Insert our 2 heroes dead, everyone dead, the world seemingly ending from this demon army, and now we're tasked at trying to stop it. If that isn't a hell of a hook at the midway point of your first season, I don't know what is. This is a legitimately great show, and I had a blast watching episodes 5 and 6. I've had a blast watching the show as a whole, but let me know what you're feeling. Are you feeling as strong as me with the wrong way to use healing magic, or do you still think it has a long ways to go to prove itself, at least for you? Let me know how you're feeling about this down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course ring that bell, and like I mentioned, we have those full live reactions over on my Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we have Andrew DePuma, Rady Reed, Chloe NG, Marco San, Laguna Net, and Hirne12. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.